Hey guys, what is up? It is Bib07 here again, and welcome to another RuneScape 3 vlog here today. In this video, I'm going to do another little discussion on my thoughts on Necromancy a little over a week after its release. Talk about what I've been up to and how I've progressed with the skill and the combat style mostly, and just give my additional thoughts, I guess, as a follow-up to my other two videos. So first of all, I do have the tier 90 armor set now. I know in the last video I had not quite yet finished doing Hermod for the rest of the plates, but I did do about 110 more kills, and that managed to get me the 29 plates in total, almost exactly on the drop rate of 1 in 10 for a plate. That is assumed by the wiki, but based on everything I've seen, I'm pretty sure it is definitely accurate at a 1 in 10 drop rate. Did not get the pet, unfortunately, and I really don't want to go back to the boss since it is pretty boring and has really, really bad drops. But maybe I will sometime in the far future, but definitely not anytime soon. And then as far as Raziel goes, I've actually done quite a lot more of Raziel. I have done 387 kills now, and the last video I think was on like 27 or so. And I am at 5 out of 8 on the collection log. At about 330 kills, I still only had the lantern and the pet. And then in the last 50 or 60 kills, I've gotten 3 drops to break my dry streak. I was I was actually over 300 kills dry, which is pretty annoying. But the drops here are not really that rare, as I'm sure many of you can tell based on all the broadcasts that are always popping in the chat. So I got pretty unlucky with the long dry streaks, but they happen, and a bunch of other people have shared theirs as well, that some even worse than mine, but no duplicates yet. I don't really know if I'm going to continue and finish the log or not. I'm kind of getting a little bit bored of the boss, but I wouldn't mind another Omni Guard or so, although all the gear is crashing quite hard. I got the Omni gear, or the Omni Guard rather, last night, and that was sold for 1.24 bill. And then my friend got the Omni Guard this morning, and it sold for only 1 bill. So yeah, they're dropping pretty hard. Robe Top was 450, and then I got this, I think today, 305 mil for that. And I'm up to over 7 bill cash now, which is pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with that. I've definitely more than recouped my Necromancy spending now for sure, although I had already done so with my first Soulbound Lantern drop. And I'm up to 103, almost 104 Necromancy solely from doing Raziel. I haven't done any more rituals at all and not really done any other combat. I've just done Raziel. So I'm using the same method that everyone else is using, that I'm sure most of you know about, where you use a Reaver and just ignore all the mechanics and just smash him over the head and DPS him down. I have a 59.4, which I'm actually pretty proud of. I know people have lower times, but I don't have any of the tier 95 gear, weapons, or anything. And I also don't have the tier 99 prayer. And I also don't have the Undead Slayer sigil. So I'm pretty happy with a sub 1 minute time with that amount of gear. But my typical times are from 1 minute 5 seconds to 1 minute 10 seconds on average. But yeah, so like compared to when I first thought about the boss, I mean, I still don't think it's that great of a boss. It's basically like Magister V2. It's just a DPS dummy. Helped along quite a bit by the fact that you can use, of course, Salve Amulet and Undead Slayer at the boss, giving you huge damage buffs. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun to do just because I have a set rotation that I do every time, and it's, I don't know. It's something about that's just like that's how RSPVM goes most of the time. I mean, at a lot of bosses, eventually you just settle into a rotation that you go with. This one, I mean, I didn't really come up with it. I was kind of in the same ballpark, but I refined it a little bit by looking at the PVME and stuff like that. The only problem I have with the way that is, the meta and stuff is it doesn't really help you transfer to other bosses at all that are longer fights. Basically, at the end of the Raziel fight, I am gonna, like, if say the fight were only maybe half over at the time when it normally ends now, then I would be doing like 0 damage for quite a while, because it's all based around killing him in that 1 minute. You use, you use your living death, you spam death skulls off cooldown, And then when that's over, you've got like another minute on the living death cooldown, and you basically can just like only like stack soul saps and use volley, which is really bad. And use your conjure skeleton warrior. But also after that point, your conjures die, and it is not cheap to resummon them, especially if you want to command the vengeful ghost to continue using haunt. You do need a life transfer during the kill to make them last the entire time, that additional 20.4 seconds. Although I think if you have the full set, you don't need that, because that gives you an additional 25% time on your conjures, which is pretty crazy. If you didn't realize, and I kind of didn't, but I wasn't really thinking about buying this armor anyway, but it actually is per piece worn. It increases the damage of your conjures and the duration. So it is pretty strong, I think. As far as the Omni Guard, I think that's probably a pretty strong thing. 6 stacks kind of would take a while, especially in the rotation that I do at the boss. I wonder how long they last for, actually. That's something interesting. And the Lantern probably wouldn't be that useful at this boss, but like I said, it doesn't really translate well to other bosses, since I don't really know how to consistently DPS with Necromancy. Or is it really just a burst and then do nothing for maybe a minute, 45 seconds to a minute, and then do more burst, which I don't know if I would like that much. But I mean, your damage without death skulls isn't completely horrible, but it's not great for sure. And I mean, I tried Virago once, and the one big deterrent to doing other bosses for me is Bone Shield is stupidly expensive, if you ask me. The amount of runes you need to cast this is just kind of crazy. 10 soul and bone and 5 flesh runes. Now, the runes have gone down in price quite a bit because of people spamming the impure essence ritual, and they're being flooding impure essence into the market, making it readily available for anybody who wants to do rune crafting. I don't know if there's any faster way to rune craft than just running back and forth from the bank in but if there is, then people are probably doing that. But I think it seems to me, because if you didn't know, prior to release and prior to the YouTubers they invited out to test, Bone Shield was actually an incantation that you casted and not something you toggle on and off. And whenever you cast it, it would give you a certain amount of time where you could use defensives without a shield. I'm not sure how long of a time when that was, but either way, this cost seems to me like they changed it to be per defensive you use, but didn't reduce the rune cost to compensate. So I don't know, because like if you just think about this right here, using this at Virago or wherever, you use a lot of defenses at Virago, especially your bomb tanking, because there are time gates in the fight and stuff like that. So you just end up blasting through runes like nobody's business. It's kind of crazy. Now, of course, you can bring a shield to the boss and use that instead as a switch. They did fix the issue with Greater Bone Shield, reducing your barricade time for higher tier shields. But, that does, of course, incorporate a switch, which some people don't like, especially with Necromancy, since that's kind of, they said, the whole point, or, one of the big points of the style is not having switches. But it also, there's no high tier Necromancy shield available. I'm pretty sure the highest tier is like the Dragon Fire Shield Necromancy version, or maybe the Spectral outstrips that, but that also will drain your prayer. So I'm not 100% sure which is better, but they're both not as good as the Rot's shields, which I feel like they could easily just add a 4th Rot's shield for Necromancy, and it would make it a lot better, but I don't know if they're going to do that because they probably want people to continue using Bone Shield. But I think the rune cost could be lowered on that a bit. Now, since the runes have gone down in price, it's not as bad, but it still seems like a lot of runes to spend just for each shield ability you use. So, one thing I neglected to mention here that I just wanted to throw in as I was reviewing the video is that if you do bring a shield switch, you also will unequip your lantern, which will kill your conjures immediately. So you're really disincentivized to use a shield with Necromancy because of that. I don't know if in the future they'll make some sort of shield that you can combine with your lantern. That wouldn't really make sense, because then it would just be a shield and a lantern, so you wouldn't need to switch still. I'm not sure if there'll just be like a shield that doesn't have the same like damage effect and bonus as the lantern, but still keeps your conjures alive, or what. But right now, I mean, you're pretty much trolling, I think, if you use a shield with necromancy, since your conjures will be dying from that, and they are a pretty decent portion of your damage, especially outside of something like living death. So just wanted to add that in, as I forgot to mention it here, and it is one of the most important points I have, I think, for why Bone Shield should maybe be a little bit cheaper, especially considering the level of the shield is way below something that you would actually be using to switch to. That kind of disincentivizes me from doing things like Virago and other bosses where you'd use maybe a lot of defensive abilities, at least for now. I don't know. I actually haven't tried Solak yet. I did plan to maybe do that, but then I learned the Raziel rotation and kind of camped him a bit for a few days, and maybe I'll still do that. But yeah, that's pretty much my main problem with how I've done the bosses. The skills, I guess you'd call them, don't really transfer to longer fights or maintaining DPS at all. So yeah, I still wouldn't say I really like Raziel as a boss, because it's you just ignore the mechanics and DPS, and that's pretty much it. There's it's not very interesting, but yeah, I read a comment on one of my other videos that kind of lined up pretty well with what I was thinking when I was reviewing Necromancy. It was from this person called Vit27. They said that basically we can give Jagex the benefit of the doubt. They've said that post-release content is going to be very important with Necromancy, and be a big part of what you can do with it, since they're going to be able to design content with that in mind. But just comparing it to archaeology is just such a big difference, in my opinion. Archaeology was just way better when it first released, but then archaeology also got extra content afterwards. Like when the Orthan dig site came out, I was honestly really surprised at how much more content there was in there. It was a full-fledged dig site with mysteries and a bunch of excavation plots, collection logs, and everything. And we even got the Sentiston mini dig site as well. And it was just like, wow, this skill is crazy. There's so much content with this skill. But with Necromancy, it feels like we're waiting for that content. Like that content isn't going to be like a surprise or extra, or added on top of something that's already done. It's going to be required to make the skill feel complete, I guess, is what I think. And not even just the bosses, but I think there needs to be additional rituals added and stuff like that, because like I said in my other video, only having, I think it's 4 types of rituals is pretty boring. Like I wish there was different things you could ensoul that had some sort of use. That could be a good way to introduce an overload type of thing to Necromancy, where I have no idea what you could do. Like maybe I could ensoul my Salve Amulet to make it even more OP. But something like that, where you get like a permanent unlock. That would be an easy way to implement the necromantic rune pouch, by ensouling your rune pouch at the ritual site. But as for right now, those types of things don't exist, and we are yet to hear what exactly we will get for those, because I mean, there's definitely going to be a rune pouch, but how they implement it remains to be seen. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of my thoughts at the moment. I don't really know if there's too much else to say. But yeah, like as a whole, I'm fairly happy with the play time, and I enjoyed my time getting up to 99, and it was a fairly good skill release. But when I just look back and think about that archaeology skill release, I really have never had more fun in the game than that time frame of March to like April, May 2020, when I was just playing like all day, grinding archaeology, learning, figuring out those mysteries for myself was really fun, and stuff like that. But yeah, I just wanted to give like another little update as to my final thoughts. It'll probably be my last video that's specifically on Necromancy. And obviously much less content than I had with archaeology. I could make a guide to the rotation at at Raziel if people really want that. So I guess let me know in the comments if you really want a guide for that rotation. But it's really not that complicated. You basically just look at the list of abilities and you use them in that order, and GG, you're done. Like there's no mechanics to worry about aside from the wall of ghosts, which is extremely easy to avoid and only happens once usually. So it's really just as simple as pressing the abilities in the order that are there, as long as you have the requisite gear and stuff like that, which maybe people might not have. So even then, maybe it's even more not worth it to make that video. But if people would be interested, then I guess I could do that. Do they have this on here? They don't. That's cool that they have the wiki. Wait, Hermod? This isn't Hermod. This is Raziel. What are you talking about? But yeah, I mean, I am really looking forward to Vorkath for sure. But that is like what, 3 months out at this point. I think that's in November. The quest in October should be nice. I think on their roadmap, all of September was blocked off to be like necromancy fixes and stuff. So that's kind of wild, considering it came out at the beginning of October. It's pretty surprising that they would only do the like those fixes there during that time. I'm sorry, I'm just looking, trailing off and stuttering a bit. I'm looking currently for the news post that had that timeline. Here we go. Oh, why did it tease it and then it took it away? Here we go. Yeah. Oh no. Okay, September is having a major update. Oh, I see. Yeah. So September says new updates, player feedback on the picture, but then also says TBA major update underneath. So I guess we will be getting some sort of update in September, and then October has the quest and also a Halloween event, and then the new boss battle comes in November. So I'm not really sure how that works. Like, I thought the quest was going to be how you unlock the boss battle, and I mean, it probably still is, but are you not going to fight the boss as a part of the quest? I don't know. That just seems a little strange. So I'm wondering what that TBA major update is going to be. It's kind of interesting. But also, they did come out with a patch this week, obviously, for Necromancy. They had a bunch of stuff that they changed and fixed for the first week, so that was pretty good. They showed a cool little heat map of the first hour of the Necromancy launch and where people went in the city. I mean, it's mostly where you'd expect, but it is just kind of a cool thing that they have access to data like that. It's pretty interesting to see. But as far as the patch notes go, I mean, there was like 1 billion hot fixes in there from the original week. But as far as anything significant in the Necromancy patch notes, a lot of the ritual stuff has now been made a bit better to include having your chat box give you a message whenever you get, what is that? Oh, weird. So you still unlock new stuff arriving in the city after 99. That's pretty good. But yeah, so now you will get a text in your chat box when you get a, what are they even called? Whatever the soul attraction brings, the distractions or whatever. I can't think of if there's an actual word for them, but that's good. You can like set up your Alt 1 to notify you when you get one, although Alt 1 isn't always super quick at notifying you when a net chat box message you're looking for shows up, and oftentimes if you don't get on those ritual distractions right away, you might miss out on them. So I mean, it definitely helps, but maybe it's not going to be enough for people who are wanting to be more AFK. They also apparently made the Shambling Horror better. Before, it was actually impossible to see. Like I said, I didn't even know there was an indicator until I was like 95, and I heard someone else say it because I never saw it and just assumed you had to guess or see where it was walking to. Let's see. I don't think there was really anything else that important. So yeah, it was just like a bunch of small fixes that really aren't worth exactly mentioning. Oh, they fixed it so you can augment the tier 95. Obviously, that was pretty bad. And they reverted the changes to the other styles that didn't include Necromancy, but the other combat styles were made weaker with overload buffs. That has been reverted for now. Apparently, they're going to be looking to either some alternative way of doing it or something like that. And then obviously the Bone Shield Barricade fix that I mentioned. Also, something strange that I saw in there was they completely I think it's pretty big nerf to the range poison build, where you would take a Reaver and Bic arrows and use the Black Crystal from Morvron's Slayer challenge to give you it would basically damage you whenever you healed. So you'd have Soul Split on, and then you would get your Reaver to deal damage with the Soul Split, and your Black Crystal would make sure you were never at full health, so you were always getting those. They were small damage hits, but they could proc the poison, which was the whole point of doing it. But they basically made it so that the Black Crystal now just reduces your healing effectiveness by 25%, which is basically killing that approach. I don't know if the poison, I'm sure the Bic arrows will still be good, but you won't really be able to use that Reaver effect as far as I can tell. It just seemed kind of strange and out of nowhere that was nerfed. Maybe people were using it with Necromancy, but I don't see why that would warrant a nerf either. Basically completely removed, not exactly just a nerf, but yeah, overall not that significant of any changes in there. They did release a full list of everything that they had from the first week. What is this? Okay, whatever. Yeah, where was it? Community feedback update number 1. They had a whole list of what they were investigating, things that were awaiting patch, and things that were resolved, or things that they determined aren't an issue. So it's pretty cool that they are so open about it. They did say they were going to be potentially updating one of the Nihils to work for Necromancy, which is good, because at something like Virago, there's not really a clear familiar you want to bring, and your accuracy at Virago is pretty bad. I went in this gear with Elder Overloads and everything, and I was at 65% damage potential, which obviously is a pretty big reduction. So you'd still want to hammer at Virago, at least for now. The Nihil would be definitely a big help there. So that'd be cool to have that possible. Yeah, Spectral Scythe apparently is pretty bad to use. I've never used it in a boss fight, but you do have to walk into melee range, which seems terrible. Let's see, was there anything else in there that was super interesting? Not exactly, but yeah, and then a lot of things that were awaiting patch. Most of them, I think, came in this week, and yeah, just it's nice to see that they have that transparency level. I was also surprised to see that Jagex released like a little bit of a guide to leveling on their website, as like a news post. I've never seen them do anything like this. It was pretty interesting to read through how they want, or how they think people can level up, and what you need, and basically how to start with Necromancy. And they give you level brackets from 5 to 9, 10 to 19, 20 to 29, basically every 10 up to level 50 plus. And it says check back next Saturday for extra guidance all the way to 99. So I guess at the end of this, excuse me, I guess at the end of this week, they're going to be even expanding this. So it is a pretty cool little thing that they